Hello, friends. Craig Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays. Yes, indeed, I am locked on the Toronto Blue Jays, and I am thankful that you're choosing to spend part of your day talking Toronto Blue Jay baseball with me. I am a long time, and I think you'll find, if you haven't already found, a passionate, I hope you would say as well, knowledgeable Toronto Blue Jay fan, and I'm really looking forward to the ins and outs of and spending the 2023 season with you. Have high hopes. I know it's a last place team right now. I do know that. I know you do too, but have high hopes for the 2023 Toronto Blue Jays. And for those of you becoming everydayers, making the Locked On Blue Jay podcast your first podcast listen every day, certainly want to thank you there. Want to remind you that, of course, the Locked On Blue Jay podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also have a lot of great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network, other baseball shows like Locked On MLB and Locked On Fantasy Baseball. For those of you who are hitting that subscribe and leaving those comments and those likes on our Locked On Blue Jays podcast YouTube channel, I see you and I thank you. The podcast is growing. You're right there, big part of it, and I really thank you and appreciate you for that. How about the 2023 Toronto Blue Jays? What have we seen lately? Oh boy, wow. How about the offense, right? The first segment here, let's go ahead and look at some of the offense. Later on in the show, we're going to be joined by Locked On Rays. We're going to continue that crossover conversation to really deep dive and get you set for Berrios versus Taj Bradley tonight. Game 2 of this series, Blue Jays at their house of horrors in the Trop, right, in Tampa Bay. But I wanted to start by taking an overview of what we've seen so far from the offense. A lot of chatter going on, rightfully so, about the steps backwards and the struggles that this offense has had. We figured that from a power standpoint, I mean, everydayers will remember, we talked about this a lot just before the season started when we were really getting ready for the season. The moves in the offseason, surely the power, I know, don't call me Shirley, right? I know, but surely the power was going to take, some sort of step backwards. But we hoped that the new base running and the new defense, with the new base running, there's going to be, it wasn't home run or bust anymore. It's going to be a different ways to manufacture runs. So even though the offense might take a slight step backwards, it would just be different. It could still have a chance to be very effective, right? And it was going to be made up for because of how good the defense was. Well, even I firmly believe that would be the case. And I did not see this regression coming. The offense is the Toronto Blue Jays are always in the top tier, top 3 or 4 of every offensive category, have been for several years. They're in the middle of the pack of all the offensive categories right now. And you talk about the power, you've got to go back to 2014 to see the last Toronto Blue Jay team that didn't hit at least 200 home runs in one season. Now, of course, 2020 not counting there, right? The COVID shortened season. But yeah, you have to go back to 2014 for the last Blue Jay team that didn't hit at least 200 home runs. This year's Toronto Blue Jay team on pace for just a titch over 170 home runs. Now, I do want to mention something here, because the one thing that I think is a little bit under the radar right now when it comes to the Blue Jays' power deficiencies in 2023, it's sort of been coming. I say 2014 is the last time they didn't hit at least 200 home runs. Well, last season was their lowest in ages, and it was exactly 200 home runs. So there actually have been some steps taken backwards with the power, certainly with the consistency of the power. But again, this was going to be a team that was offensively was still going to be good, just differently. Well, how about what we just saw on this 10-game homestand? This was supposed to be, if the Blue Jays showed up for every game on time, this should have been a minimum 6-4 homestand, right? It went 4-6. And remember, it started 3-0. And the culprit, bullpen had its moments, starting pitching had its moments. That's all very, very true. Like in the bad categories, I mean, that's all very, very true. But the offense was completely unacceptable. Could you say downright pathetic? I mean, 3.6 runs per game over a 10-game homestand. They scored 36 runs over a 10-game homestand. The power's not been, Vlad's still at 0 home runs this season at Rogers Center, by the way. So I'm right there with you that the power's taken steps backwards, but man, the hitting with runners in scoring position has been abysmal. The Toronto Blue Jays this season are leaving a little over 4 men in scoring position every single game. As you might imagine, it's unacceptable, yes, and as you might imagine, dead last. That's dead last in all of baseball. Again, power taking a step backwards, I'm not stunned. But what about the approaches at the plate? I thought this was what Don Mattingly was going to be so helpful with. Don Mattingly was a runner in scoring position machine because he thought the game and he always had a good approach. I've not seen that yet with the 2023 Toronto Blue Jays. Last season, the Jays hit 258 with men in scoring position. That's downright respectable. This season, 235. And it is cut and dry. It is cut and dry when you look at the actual stats in wins and losses. Blue Jays this season alone, 2023, 293 team, hitting 293, extremely legit with runners in scoring position in their wins. In their losses, 156. 156 with men in scoring position in their losses. Again, let's look at the homestand we just had, where we should have seen a lot of momentum gained offensively, and it went the exact opposite route. In that homestand, the Blue Jays 22 for 111 with runners in scoring position. That's a batting average below 200. And in those 7 games against New York and Baltimore, 12 for 74. That's a 162 average with runners in scoring position. And you'll remember, take your mind's eye back. You remember a few of those hits were little infield dribblers. It's like 3 or 4 of those, maybe even as many as 5 of those 12 hits. And by the way, 12 hits in 74, I mean, putrid. And a bunch of them were little infield dribblers that didn't even score the runs, right? Advanced the run or something, but didn't even score the runs. Let's deep dive the individual players, right? Let's see who the culprit is this season. Well, George Springer, Bo Bichette, and Vlad, the top of the lineup, would you believe they've all taken steps forward with their hitting with runners in scoring position? Now, Bo's been outstanding. He's taken big steps forward, but all 3 of them hitting much better this season with runners in scoring position. Matt Chapman, great April, horrible May. So overall, his overall production has been the same as it was in the past. Dalton Varsho. And remember now, of course, Varsho's hit 4th or 5th. He's hit in RBI spots in this lineup all season long. 9 for 56 with runners in scoring position. That is a 161 batting average. Not a whole lot better. The guy that hits right around him as well in the middle of that lineup, Brandon Belt. Are we happier with Belt lately? Sure we are. But overall for the season, 5 for 26. 192 batting average for Brandon Belt with runners in scoring position. Alejandro Kirk, a hitting machine in the past, 7 for 34. That's a 206 batting average for Alejandro Kirk with runners in scoring position. And of course, I mean, Espinal and Biggio, you're not even going to be surprised. Espinal and Biggio combined with runners in scoring position this season, they're 7 for 43. It's a 163 batting average. You're not even surprised. They are so bad. Base running, like any team, has had its ups and downs, but really for the most part, the base running has been downright good, really good, you could even say, for the Toronto Blue Jays. It's the hitting with runners in scoring position. And I know many are going to think that the outfield changes are the culprit to the offense overall. Well, let's deep dive that. Last season, the outfielders combined to hit 263. This season, they've combined to hit 255. Now, Varsho is going to improve, and Kiermaier is going to, step back a little bit. So it'll probably be right around that pace, but that's the same pace as last year's outfield. Last year's outfielders hit 57 home runs. This season, the team on pace for 48 home runs. So a little bit less in the power. Yes, just like we saw coming. But the base running has been just sensational, and the defense has been sensational. You talk about that base running. Last season, the Blue Jays outfielders attempted 40 stolen bases. They made 29, were caught 11. This season, Toronto Blue Jay outfielders, 26 stolen base attempts, caught twice. 24 for 26. And you look at the runs, just getting on base enough to score the runs. Last season, the Blue Jays outfielders scored 251 runs. This season, they're on pace for 246. A lot of areas. Surprisingly, this Blue Jay outfield is on pace for the same production as last year's outfield. In other areas like base running and defense, it's superior to last year's outfield. So that's not the culprit. Outfield is not the issue. There are 2 positions, though, I do want to deep dive. Catcher spot. Wow, last season there was not a position on the team that was better for the Toronto Blue Jays than the catcher spot. Last season, the catchers combined to hit 286. Outstanding. This season, that's down to 223. 63-point dip. The on-base percentage, it's gone from 360 to 306. 54-point dip. And the OPS, so how about the on-base plus some power hitting here? Oh, boy. Wow. 824 OPS for Blue Jay catchers last season, 660 this season. 162 points, 64 points, less than last season. The catcher spot has been a black hole for any sort of offense. Wow. And Jansen, worth mentioning, Jansen's had some big hits in there, right? Let's acknowledge that, absolutely. But overall, the Blue Jays nowhere close to the sort of production from the catcher spot that they got last season. Last season, Blue Jays got 25 home runs from the catcher spot. This season, on pace for 16. Oh boy. Second base is the other position I want to talk about. And I know that's going to surprise a lot of people because a lot of us would think that Whit Merrifield's having a good season. And overall, he sort of is. But Whit's numbers have come, his good numbers, when he's been in the outfield. Let's deep dive this. The Toronto Blue Jays last season, their second baseman combined to hit 272. I mean, very legit. This season, Toronto Blue Jays second baseman hitting 193. And yes, Espinal and Biggio are in there, but so is Whit. Whit Merrifield as a second baseman this season's hitting just 227. Just 227. That surprises me. Just 227. As an outfielder, he's 22 for 70, which is a 314 batting average. When Witt's been in the outfield, he's been hitting. He's not been hitting as a second baseman. Speaking of not hitting as a second baseman, Santiago Espinal, remember, we just saw him go 3 for 3 before he had to leave the game with an injury. So hopefully he's starting to heat up when he gets back. But he's just 12 for 54 this season. He has 1 double, 11 strikeouts. Kevin Biggio. When he is, with Espinal, that's when he's played second base. Biggio, when Biggio has played second base this season, he's at 37 at-bats. He has 3 singles. No need to wait for me to go on and continue. That's the end of the list. Kevin Biggio at second base this season, 3 for 37. All singles, 14 strikeouts. Coming up on Locked On Blue Jays, we're joined by Locked On Rays for a crossover conversation to really deep dive and get you set for Jose Berrios versus Taj Bradley tonight. Reminder, you can take in that game on SiriusXM. Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. So Rare recently partnered with MLB All-Stars Juan Soto and Julio Rodriguez, wow, to serve as brand ambassadors. Both are featured in So Rare's current brand campaign and will engage with So Rare community throughout the MLB season at MLB events. So Rare MLB game weeks happen twice weekly and span a 3 or 4 day cycle. At the end of the game week, So Rare MLB managers who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which can include So Rare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting these MLB stars. Prizes may vary depending on the competition. Head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. And now we turn our attention to Tuesday's pitching matchup, Jose Berrios versus the rookie Taj Bradley. Now, with Berrios on the road so far this season, Kevin, wow, feast or famine. Now, he did face Tampa back in April and pitched well, but, that was at home, gave up just a 1 run on the 4 hits and 5 innings pitched, no walks and 6 strikeouts. And what's significant there, Kevin, it's Berrios' only start in his last 23. Shout out to Anthony Davis, number 23. Come on, Lakers, got to get it going. But that's a different podcast. Sorry. In Berrios' last 23 starts, it was the only time he did not walk a batter. The slurve and the sinker doing well for Berrios so far this season. We know the issue with him. The question with him is, where's the location of the fastball? That's always going to be the question with Jose Berrios. That's where he gets himself in trouble. When he lives on the corners, he can be very good. When he misses his spots, which is all too often, then those 1-run innings become 3, 4, 5-run innings. Now, when as I say, when he gets in trouble, he misses that fastball. Now, misses a spot. Sorry. Now, Kevin, what Rays do Blue Jay fans need to be concerned about? Because from what you've seen so far in 2023, when that opposing pitcher is missing his spots, this Ray or these Rays aren't missing these mistakes.
I mean, I'll tell you, Craig, I sound like a broken record here, but you could basically say 1 through 9, just anybody in the Rays lineup. Yep. They're capitalizing on mistakes. I mean, if there's one guy two guys that are the most professional and most disciplined and have it all together, I would say Yandy Diaz and Wanda Franco. But that's kind of my answer for that. Just about everybody has improved in one shape or the other as far as pitch recognition and capitalizing on mistakes.
Let's stay on Wanda Franco for a minute then, because I'm such a fan of his. Somebody has him as their fantasy shortstop.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Wanda Franco's. I think he has, top tier, if not top shortstop, upside and caliber. Where are you on Wander Franco, Kevin? Big picture wise, do you think he has the potential to be like a top 3, literally shortstop in all of baseball? And what are you really looking for? Because it's 2022. I mean, we know there were reasons for it, but there's no way that was up to his standard. So what are you looking for, expecting from 2023 Wander Franco?
I would expect him to be getting MVP votes at the end of
Wow.
the season. We've definitely seen more power from him. Last year, he was a guy that kind of drove the ball into the ground a little bit too often. He had a great hit tool and contact ability, but he just wasn't lifting and elevating the ball quite enough. We're seeing a different case of that this year. And then defensively has really grown in strides. I mean, his range is unbelievable. Some of
Wow.
the plays that he's been able to make this season, if you look at Savant and look at the numbers up and down, if there's anything, maybe, you know, drawing a couple more walks, but it's really tough to nitpick at that. And he still kind of sometimes gets squeezed by the umpire as well. He gets cheated to some extent, but I'll mark it down that he's eventually going to have a couple MVPs to his name. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to be one of the greatest baseball players we've ever seen.
Wow, calling a Hall of Famer, calling one of the greatest we've ever seen. Kevin, I'm not even mad at it. I'm a huge Wanda Franco fan.
Yeah.
And on the
I mean,
mound,
there's a reason that the Rays, as penny pinching as the Rays are, very early on in his career, they have guaranteed him over $180 million.
Very good point. Yes, very good point. Actually, Kevin, you know what? Let's just stay there real quick for a sec, because I'm of the mindset that these aren't your grandfather's Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, they were in on Freddie Freeman. You've been in on some big priced guys. Is are you seeing a little bit more spending in this budget, or is it more just one offs? If they think that the player is a perfect fit, they don't mind spending a little bit.
No, I mean, in this last offseason, we saw a couple extensions with Yandy Diaz and Pete Fairbanks. And before that, Manny Margot. They also gave the largest free agent contract that they've ever given as a franchise to Zach Eflin, 4 years, $40 million. So we are seeing them spend money here and there and really invest internally. I think that's also gone a long way with this franchise of keeping the core, keeping the same players around year in and year out, as opposed to it being a revolving door, and giving players on the present roster and on the come up a little bit of confidence and you know, just saying that, hey, maybe that could be me one day. Maybe I can get that 20, 25, 40, $50 million contract. So, you know, I think that's a big thing as well. We also saw Pete Fairbanks. I don't know if I mentioned him already. Pete Fairbanks getting extended. I mean, we've seen over the last couple of years, they've been doling out quite a bit of money. I know that they get a bad rep and a bad reputation because they are so frugal and their payroll is one of the lowest in baseball. But and I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, come this off season that they look at maybe extending a Josh Lowe or a Taylor Walls or somebody of that ilk as well.
Wow. I mean, I got to say that's awesome. I don't want it to be awesome, Kevin, but it's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah.
And then I think some of it too has to go with them trying to build up some, not saying it's just all done for nefarious reasons, but they also want to build some, and I think they realize that they've got something here with Wanda Franco and Randy and the whole group, but they also want to build up some goodwill and some equity as they try to leverage public financing for a new ballpark, a new stadium in the Tampa Bay, St. Pete area, wherever it may be, and saying that, hey, we've invested, we're spending money, we're not just letting this thing go, and we're ready to bring a lot of joy and excitement and passion into a new ballpark in 2027, 2028, etc.
I don't want to admit that's awesome, Kevin, but it is. It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Yeah, I hate the Rays so much because they're so good, but I respect the absolute heck out of that organization. Wow. Now, so we talked about Berrios tonight at on the Tuesday game. Now, a Taj Bradley opposes 22-year-old rookie. Yet another example of the Rays pitching machine. Like here comes another stud up to the big league level, making his fifth start of the season. The only game the Rays have lost was his last time out. That was a 3-2 loss to the Mets. He still pitched well in that game. Now, he's had everything working so far, Kevin. That's what you got to be impressed with, right? That four-seamer, that cutter, that curve, that changeup, it's all been on display. Normally, a pitcher this young, this inexperienced, is kryptonite for the Toronto Blue Jays. We never seem to do well against pitchers like this, but usually it's particularly true when they're soft tossers. Taj Bradley, of course, is a power pitcher, right? He's running that fastball up there in the mid to high 90s. So if I'm the Blue Jays tonight, I'm really looking to pick out that fastball. Had 2 starts at home, 2 starts on the road. Now, the 2 starts at home, I mean, he's been a strikeout machine home or away. But the 2 starts at home, Kevin, haven't been nearly as sharp as the 2 starts on the road. So what are you looking for tonight from your rookie starter?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that it's interesting because Taj Bradley got a couple of starts, then he was sent down to the minors and just recently called up and had a really good showing against the Mets. But I would expect him to go, five and a third, and hopefully he can settle into the home confines of Tropicana Field. I think it comes. He's getting this started at a good time as the Blue Jays are reeling and struggling offensively. That this is an
Yes.
opportunity for him to really do well because. I think the Rays have done a good job of trying to work him in, ease him into the sense of, he started against the Reds, he started against the Mets. The Mets aren't doing well either this season. I know he had to start against the Astros as well, but I think just trying to put him into good, comfortable spots. And I think what could really be key, just like with a lot of young pitchers that are just getting their first opportunities in the big leagues, is if the Rays can capitalize and score early on Berrios, get up 3-4 runs, whatever it may be. I think that could help Taj Bradley settle in and settle down. But you are right, he is a power pitcher. He's got the fastball up in the zone. That's where he likes to locate it. And really, the key is the growth and the development of the secondary pitches. He's got 4 pitches as we see right now, but how good are those 4 pitches? You might want to see some more from the curveball and the changeup as he develops as a pitcher. So, but I really no complaints. He's been really, really solid this year for the Rays, and they're going to need him. They're going to need the 22-year-old to step up without the likes of Jeffrey Springs and without the likes of Drew Rasmussen, and temporarily without Tyler Glasnow.
And real quick, because I definitely need to know this, I think Blue Jay fans interested as well. What is the deal with Glasnow? What sort of timetable are you looking at this point?
Well, I hear that he had a good start in Durham, so I would imagine before the end of the month, maybe.
Wow.
He could get that opportunity with the Rays. Originally, before the season started, it was said to be mid-May, but of course that timetable has been pushed back. But It seems like more and more Glasnow discussion is on the forefront. So I would imagine within the next couple of weeks.
Wow. I mean, as a Blue Jay fan, I'm certainly not excited, Kevin. But again, these things are important to us. Someone's got him on their fantasy team.
Yeah,
these things,
there we go.
right? These things are important to us as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Coming up on Locked On Blue Jays, with so much doom and gloom historically for the Blue Jays versus the Devil Rays, and now the Rays, especially at Tropicana Field, I wanted to go over a few things of real significance, a few good things, right? An actual good category of significance when it comes to these two teams in the favor of your Toronto Blue Jays. This Romano Jansen bobblehead, right? Absolutely love that. Now, how did I get tickets to that game? Well, that was on gametime.co. Use the Game Time app. Buying tickets to your favorite events, it should not be stressful, and Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you're going to have. I've been to a few Blue Jay games this season, and literally every time use the Game Time app, as I've been really pleased with how easy it is to use. Forget about planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and roll for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Wow. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. It's 2 taps and you're all set. Tickets sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Man, Tropicana Field, said it before, you'll hear it a billion times because of how true it is. House of horrors for the Toronto Blue Jays. We were talking the other day as well here on Locked On Blue Jays. If you're old enough to remember when there was the American League East, American League West, National League East, National League West, so just the 4 divisions, and the Milwaukee Brewers were in the American League East with the Blue Jays. This is in the 80s and 90s. Then you remember that's how the Milwaukee Brewers were against the Toronto Blue Jays. It didn't matter where the teams were in the standings, who had a better team, who was playing better baseball at the time, coming into the series. Nothing mattered. Milwaukee always beat the Toronto Blue Jays. Well, that's how it is with the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, I did want to touch on and highlight some great moments actually in Blue Jay history that do have to do with Tampa Bay Rays. Let's get some positivity going in here when it comes to this matchup, right? The Blue Jays won the season series from 98 to 2002. So that's Tampa Bay's first 5 seasons. The Blue Jays won the series, the season series, all 5 of those seasons. But there have been 20 seasons since then. The Blue Jays have won the season series against the Tampa Rays just 4 times. Even the playoff teams that have happened, the Jays have had 4 playoff teams lately in 2015, 2016, 2020, and 2022. Even those 4 playoff teams, those are playoff teams. They combined to go just 30-39 versus Tampa Bay. And those 4 playoff teams played 37 games at the Trop, won just 15 of them. I mean, didn't I say it does not matter who's playing who's got a good team, man. These guys always beat them. But there was one epic moment in Toronto Blue Jay franchise history when it comes to them and the Tampa Bay Rays. How about the most home runs in one game? Who has that distinction for your Toronto Blue Jays? Carlos Delgado, exactly correct. Carlos Del Suado, right? Against the Tampa Bay Rays in a game back in 2003. And of course, 4 home runs, you get 4 total bases for every home run. So that's 16 total bases. That is also the Blue Jay single game franchise record for any player, right? In that same game. You know what's crazy about that game? Pete Walker. Yeah, that Pete Walker. He was the starting pitcher for the Blue Jays in that game. In the first inning, Delgado had a 3-run home run, scoring Catalanado and Wells. That was off Jorge Sosa. Leads off the 4th with a home run off Sosa. Then the bottom of the 5th, Blue Jays had a big lead, but Vinny Cholk in the top of the 5th, if you remember Vinny Cholk, he surrendered that lead. Now, Delgado in the bottom of the 5th would give the Jays the lead right back with a leadoff home run. The teams would exchange runs the rest of the way. And then in the bottom of the 8th, the game now tied at 7. Delgado again leading off the inning. Again, homers. So Delgado, 4 home runs in one game. And all important home runs too, right? The first home run gave the Blue Jays the lead. The third home run gave the Blue Jays the lead. The 4th home run gave the Blue Jays the lead. The 4th home run would end up being the game-winning home run. Carlos Delgado. Carlos Del Suado, right? How about the first Grand Slam, the first walk-off Grand Slam in Toronto Blue Jay history? That was when Greg Zahn, who spent time as a Blue Jay and a Ray, but he was a Toronto Blue Jay. And you know what? We can be friends. Shout out to you if you remember this game. I remember watching this game at my aunt and uncle's house. So shout out to you if you remember this. This was in September of 2008. BJ Ryan, you remember him, of course. BJ Ryan blew a 3-0 lead in the 9th inning. There was a key error in there by Joe Inglet at second base. Yeah, that's the 2008 Blue Jays there. Oh boy. The Devil Rays would take the lead. Now, it was Diana Navarro that would give them the lead. Now, ironically, Navarro would be not once, but a 2-time Blue Jay in the seasons that followed this particular game. He would get an RBI hit off of Brian Tallett. You remember that the big 6'6" lefty Brian Tallett. Again, this is all back in the day stuff, right? So the Rays would take a 4-3 lead. Then Troy Percival. Do you remember the closer, Troy Percival? A longtime California Angel, then Anaheim Angel, of course, and finished his career. I believe his last 2 seasons, he finished his career as a closer for the Tampa Bay Rays. In this season, in 2008, Percival had 28 saves, 4 blown saves that season. Ironically, 2 of those blown saves were versus the Toronto Blue Jays. One of them being this one, as he would load the bases, and then Greg Zahn, there would be a walk to load the bases, and Zahn went up there, switch hitter he was, right, batting from the left side against Percival, the righty, and he was looking for that first pitch fastball, got it, and just smashed it. He was looking for, he had in mind what he was going to get with that first pitch. Percival just walked the bases loaded, nursing a 1-run lead. He's going to try to get ahead with a quick strike here. Zahn was ready for it. Wow. That 2008 Blue Jay team, you might remember, that was the season John Gibbons, or one of the seasons John Gibbons was fired, and and one of the seasons where Cito Gaston, I know that happened a few times, right, where Gaston took over mid-season. That was that 2008 team. Hit by pitcher is pretty significant between these two franchises. Reed Johnson, and everydayers will remember, we talked about these 3 games of Reed Johnson before. He has the franchise record for being hit by a pitch the most times in one game. 3 pitches. Yeah, he was hit by 3 pitches in one game. Would you believe it happened actually 3 times? One of them was against these then Devil Rays. And Blue Jays franchise record for hitting batters in a game is also 3. It's happened 3 times, and 2 of those times were against the Tampa Bay Rays back in 2001. They were lefties too, both of them. Chris Mahalik, do you remember Chris Mahalik? Obscure Blue Jay. That was back in 2001. Now, you'll remember Mark Burley in 2015. He hit 3 Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Not a whole lot going right for Toronto Blue Jays baseball these days. Not a whole lot going right when it comes to the history of Toronto Blue Jays versus the Tampa Bay Rays, but hopefully had some fun there with some, it was almost like a throwback Thursday there, right? But I just wanted to inject some positivity here on a Tuesday to show that, hey, some good things have actually happened, believe it or not, when it comes to the Toronto Blue Jays versus the Tampa Bay Devil Rays and now the Tampa Bay Rays. And that'll wrap up Tuesday's episode of the Locked On Blue Jay podcast. Later on this week, joined by Cespedes Family Barbecue. How exciting is that going to be? Definitely make sure you tune in for that. Also joined again on Wednesday and Thursday with a Locked On Rays for crossover conversations to get you set for those games. Mentioned earlier on in the show, I'm going to mention it again. If you're a fan of baseball, keep it locked on the Locked On Podcast Network and check out Sully at Locked On MLB. If you're a fantasy baseball fan, keep it locked on the Locked On Podcast Network and check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. And of course, remember, every single Toronto Blue Jay game you can take in on SiriusXM.